Hello and welcome to the Mindful Men Podcast, a show inspiring men to be mindful about their lives. Each week, we'll dive into a range of topics that matter to men and hear from everyday people doing extraordinary things. So if you love the show, please give it a 5-star rating and share it with your mates. Now, before we get into this week's episode, please note that some of the content may trigger you. And if this happens, please reach out to your support networks. It's really important. If you can't get enough of Mindful Men, head over to our website. It's www.mindful-men.com.au. Find the show notes and the links to our socials there. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get mindful. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men Podcast. I'm your host, Simon Rinnie, and today I'm getting mindful about having fun and how the inner child, inner soul can guide us towards a happier sense of self. Now, if you're like me, when you became an adult, adulting got in the way. Life became serious. You had all these things you had to think about and figure out and set on a life path and all sorts of stuff. And I'm talking, you finish high school and maybe you go to work, or maybe you go to TAFE, or maybe you go to uni, maybe you travel, maybe you bunker down with a partner and have kids. Get a house, get mortgages, get car loans, boat loans, caravan loans, whatever it is. You do all the things that you think is necessary to be an adult. You start thinking about your taxes and the bills and putting food on the table and healthcare. You think about dentists, you're going to school, where are your kids going to go to school? Do they have to get public transport? What's your transport look like? All the life decisions of an adult. You don't really have these when you're a kid. And so when you're a kid, you have much more space in your brains and in your hearts, in your bodies to have more fun. Just have pure, easygoing fun. And so as we get older, and this happens for many of us, this has happened for me as well, fun has taken a back seat to the seriousness, which is in the front seat, the seriousness of life. And for about 20% of Australians each year who develop a mental illness, such as me, such as people living with depression, anxiety, or both, for example, as the seriousness of life hits in and mental health conditions take hold, we start to socially reduce our engagements or reduce our connections, should I say. This increases social isolation. Stress becomes the norm, the work, family, finances, etc., etc. And then we turn to other methods for trying to have fun or trying just to cope through every single day. And I'm talking about things like drugs, alcohol, sex. It could be shopping, eating, gambling, all the addictive areas of our lives. We turn to these for either a short-term escape or what we think is fun. How many guys are out there who think it's fun to go down the pub and have a few beers with their mates and maybe have a few too many, and who knows where the night takes them? I've been there. That was my sense of fun for a very long time. And then since I've had kids and we've got a young family, it's sometimes life can feel like you're on autopilot. You get up, you deal with kids, you deal with work, kids go to school, you go to work, come home, dinner, bath, bed, repeat. Life can often feel like we're on Groundhog Day. The seriousness is in the front seat, the fun's in the back seat. And so over the last few months, I've been feeling pretty down. I've been having a bit of a downward spiral in my mental health journey. It is a roller coaster, so there are ups and downs. And so this is part of the reason why I decided to go to a men's retreat in the last few months and to try to have some self-care, a day out just for me, where I'm not thinking about anything else but being where my feet are. But also to connect. I've been feeling quite lonely lately, and this was probably the thing that prompted my episode on loneliness a few weeks ago as well. And so I went to the retreat for the self-care, for the loneliness, or for the connection, should I say. But I didn't expect to go there and reflect on fun and joy and happiness. I thought I might be looking at all the negative things in my life and trying to work that out, as opposed to flipping the discourse and focusing on the fun stuff. And so I wanted today to share this experience I had at the men's retreat and a particular exercise around tuning into our inner child and then using that inner child or that inner voice from our youth to direct us towards more fun. And so it goes like this. It's a very simple exercise, but I'll take you through my process first of how I navigated this on the men's retreat. So at some stage during the men's retreat, at the early parts, we're connecting with others, introducing ourselves, a bit of breath work then, a bit of self-reflection. And then we went into a reflective exercise around the mask that we wear. So, what mask do we wear as men? And what are the costs of those masks? So is the mask that I'm okay when really the cost is I'm not okay, I'm struggling with mental illness, for example? Or is the mask that I need to be sensible because I'm adult, I'm the breadwinner of the household? I need to be tough as well. I need to be someone who can ricochet bullets off my chest and never get hurt, never get down. But the cost of that is feeling lost and directionless, unknowing or not knowing what to do or where to go or where to turn or who to ask for help. And so this was a really good reflective exercise, which I'm not going to go into in full detail, but it got me thinking about the mask that we wear. And then next we went into a drumming circle. So there's 30 blokes around with these bongo-style drums, and the facilitator was encouraging us to get a bit silly with this process of learning the drums, but also having fun with it. And the adult version of me was stiffened up and my back went up and I'm like, how do I just let go and really embrace this silliness, this fun, this joyfulness? But as we went through and this process of maybe 30, 40 minutes of drumming in the circle and listening to the other guys drumming and we'll encourage to use our voices and sing out loud, and some guys danced around as well. What I started to realize after I let my guard down was that, this is fun. This is the kind of stuff that I used to do when I was a kid. It's just getting together with friends and just coming up with some ideas and running with it and just enjoying being in that moment. Not having to have this persona of I'm a man, I can't do that, or I'm a boy, I can't do that, and just going, I'm a person sitting in this circle with 30 other people, other humans, and we're just having some fun. That was a really challenging task for me because I'm so serious these days. I really do struggle to let my guard down and just have genuine fun. But the drumming circle kind of woke something up a little bit inside me. Maybe it was waking up the inner child, which I'll go into next. And so we had a bit of a break from that and then came back to another reflective exercise. And it's here that things started to unpack for me in some sort of way. And so we were asked to close our eyes and look back on life and try to think back to those early childhood memories of pure joy, of fun, of happiness, of lightness. And for some, that could have been back to when they were really little, 2, 3, 4, earliest memories. For others, maybe a little bit older. For the older blokes in the room who at the retreat who maybe struggle to go back that far, that maybe it was in their teens or even in their early adult years. Wherever that point in time was, closing our eyes and thinking back to that moment in time. And so I zoomed. It felt like I was in a Back to the Future movie, and as I was thinking I could see stars zooming past, and it's black and cloudy and all very mysterious. And this is the creativity coming out of me when I sometimes put my mind to these activities. And I zoomed right in on a moment where I was either playing basketball, and I loved basketball growing up, or I was playing football, Aussie rules footy. Love playing Aussie rules footy too. And there's moments of joys of winning a game or kicking a goal or shooting, a good score in basketball. Or it's maybe playing outside with my little brother for hours on our bikes or in the street playing cricket or footy again, or just running around playing on the park. To hearing my favourite songs on the radio and belting them out without a single care of who was around me and who could hear me. And also to being that happy-go-lucky kid that my mum used to say I was right up until about 8 years old when I developed OCD. But she would always used to say, Simon, you're so happy you can just laugh at the drop of a hat and have this infectious smile. In fact, other people at school would say, Simon, you've got this amazing smile. And so these are my earliest memories of joy, hearing these things about me or, experiencing these moments of time on a sporting field or with my little brother. And then the next step was to picture that that moment, remember that moment, remember the feelings that used to be invoked with that moment, and then to visualize our adult selves going back and talking to that little kid, talking to that little child version of ourselves. And for me, this is where it turned quite dark, because as I zoomed in through that and I had this movie moment in my mind, again, the creativity came to flow. I remember walking up to this little child during this reflection exercise and not really knowing what words to say. And it was like one of those moments where you have a child and an adult and they kind of look at each other and they know who each other are, but they don't know who each other are, and nothing's really said. But then when I finally did say, as the adult version talking to my younger self, the words come out are that everything's going to be okay. That no matter how dark things get, I will be safe. I'll be able to get through the pain of living 20 years with undiagnosed mental illness. And I will get to a moment in time where I can start really healing and stop surviving and start thriving, which is where I am today. Now, to say that to a younger version of myself, he's probably just having all these joyous moments in life. That's a huge thing. And I can guarantee, that kid's probably looking up at this older version of himself, not really sure who he is and going, what is this dude talking about? He was never to know that he will start putting in these masks on of masculinity very quickly, of mental health very quickly, of being okay very quickly. But he also do it subconsciously. And so we went through that exercise and I'm like, wow, that was pretty full on. Go back to my inner child and say those things, and what a downer after we had that upper of the drum circle. But what really got cool was a bit later in the retreat, and we were sitting around a campfire, all 30 of us, and we all had those masks on that we did from that earlier exercise. These were paper masks and I think most people burned them in the fire before they left. And that was part of the last exercise. It was what are we going to leave behind at the retreat, and what are we going to take away? And as everyone was walking up, and everyone got a turn to share what they were going to take away, but also what they were going to leave behind. I was sitting there. It's getting really cold. It's been a long day, 12-hour day. Even though I was sitting next to the fire, it's still, getting a bit chilly. And I sat there and I recognized in myself that my inner child and my adult version of myself had been very disconnected. And there was a big disconnect between my teenage years to when I was 39, which is when I went on the retreat. Huge disconnect. I'd lost the ability to have fun and have pure joy and have joy, or recognize what that is, without things like alcohol. Alcohol became my coping mechanism over the years, from 15 or so onwards. At first, I thought it was something just to socialize with, but over time, I've come to recognize that it was a coping mechanism for me, a way for me to come out of my shell, but also to slow down the thoughts in my mind caused by OCD, anxiety, and depression, and then later in life, burnout as well. And so when I recognized this, that I disconnected from this inner child, I felt like in some sort of strange way that this inner child had actually inadvertently woken up during maybe the mask exercise and tapped my shoulder during the drumming circle. That he'd come up to me and said, "Hey, Simon, you're back. What's going on? You're safe. You're having fun. This is cool." And so this reflection came to me just before I was about to stand up and share what I was leaving behind, but also what I was taking with me. And what I was leaving behind was continuing to put these masks on. I'm leaving the mask down, and I'm burning the masks of what it is to be a bloke or what it is to be someone with a mental health condition. I'm leaving that at the camp, and I'm living life more authentically now. And in fact, I've been doing this for a few years, but the retreat and the camp was just a way to put it out to the world with these complete strangers and be okay with that. And on the flip side of that, what I was taking away was I was no longer going to leave my inner child behind. And in fact, I was committing myself from that day to really trying to find things that give me joy. that allow me to have fun without something like alcohol, for example. And so what does this look like? Well, this is a work in progress. But one of the things that always comes to mind for me recently is just trying to say yes more to my kids and my wife. Particularly my kids. I'll be in the home office doing some work and they'll come in and say, Dad, I want to show you this, or can we do this? And I often would say, no, I've got to do some work. But what I'm trying to do is flip that discourse and say, actually, yeah, I've got 5 minutes or I've got 10 minutes, or actually, I don't need to be doing this work right now. I've been doing it for a long time today. Because we won't get these moments back with our kids. And what they will come to recognize is that maybe dad places a lot more value on work than the fun things that they're doing. And kids are a great way to show you how to have fun, and that pure fun, that pure joy that I'm talking about from when we were younger as well. When I recognize it, I can go, yep, by hanging out with my kids or my wife or whatever, I'm reconnecting in with that inner child that I had committed to holding his hand moving forward after the men's retreat. And so what I want to share with this episode is that we can go through periods of our time in life where we forget to have fun, we forget to have joy, we maybe disconnect from that inner child version of ourselves and we start listening to the serious adult version of ourselves. And that's important. Let me just clarify, it is important to be an adult. We have to make decisions. We have to plan our lives. We have to go to work. We have to deal with finances. We have to deal with all the stuff that comes with being an adult. But it doesn't mean we have to forgo fun and joy and happiness as a result. And so I want to share the exercise specifically with you and help you out there to stop and pause and reflect and maybe reconnect with that inner child version of yourself. So if you're keen to do this, press pause in a minute and go grab yourself a pen and paper, maybe a coffee, maybe a nice cup of tea or something like that. Find a quiet space, and I'm going to walk you through a process of rediscovering or reconnecting in with the inner child version of yourself. So press pause, go do that, and come back. Now that you're back, if you went anywhere at all, because you can also do this, thinking about it. You don't have to have a pen and paper. You can do this in the car or on a train ride, on the bus ride home or whatever, or on your walk. I want you to think of zooming in through your memories. Pretend it's like Back to the Future, the movies or whatever. What's the earliest memory of you have of having amazing fun? What was it? What was happening? What did it feel like in the body? Who was around you? Where were you? Paint the picture. If you were to put this on a canvas, what would it look like? And then as you're doing that, and after you've done that, and you might have to pause this in several portions so that it gives you time to reflect. And that's okay. But when you think about that earliest moment of joy, maybe it was playing in the street with your siblings or your friends or your neighbours, or maybe it was on the sports field or at school, or maybe it was watching something really funny on TV, like something simple like that, or having just good old belly laugh with dad jokes being told around the family dinner table. Maybe it was a Christmas or a birthday or Easter or some other celebration. Maybe it was a new baby being born into the family, or a new puppy or a cat or whatever it is. What was that thing? Who was around? What was it feeling like inside? Then from there, think about, reflect on, when is the last time you felt like that? And if this was recent, that's great. Keep that going. Keep that vibe going. But if it's been a while, I want you to think of, what are the things getting in the way? What are the barriers getting in the way that are stopping you feeling so good about yourself, or about the people around you, about the moments in time around you and the things that you're doing? What are the barriers? Is it where you are, or money? Is it culture? Is it spiritual? Is it religious? Is it finances? Again, money comes up all the time because there's a big pressure at the moment. Or are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? Maybe you're trying to keep up with the next door neighbours who have got all the big toys and you don't have that, and so you think, I can't do that. What's the inner voices you're telling yourself, or the internal discourse you're telling yourself, that are stopping you from doing fun things? I'll give you an example. Often, like last summer when it's beach weather, often the kids would say, Dad, can we go down to the beach? And it's very last minute, very spontaneous. And my mind, as an OCD and anxiety mind, doesn't go, yeah, let's do this. That sounds like fun. It looks at more of all the risks associated, all the issues associated. It's the time out of the day to go do that when I'm building a small business. It's the sand in the house, in the car, and it's the sand in kids' undies, and it's the sand in my undies. It's all over, sand everywhere. It's finding a park. It's the heat. It's the making sure we've got everything packed, from food to towels to bathers to spare clothes, all the things that go with just going down to the beach. It's not as simple as just getting in the car and going down to the beach. And so I often say no to that type of stuff, even though deep down I actually probably want to go. But I'm finding all these barriers internally to say no. And some of this is also automatic for me as well. It's an automatic no because I just don't want to think about all the things that I've got to think about to go and have some fun. So this becomes a mask. So on that, what are the masks that you're wearing that are stopping you from having some fun? Are you wearing a mask that says, I'm an adult and adults don't have fun? Or I'm a dad and I've got to be serious all the time. I can't be silly. Or I'm tired because I've had a rough night with the kids being up, or I had a late night at work, or maybe I'm hungover. What masks are we wearing that are stopping you from having fun? And now I want you to think back. This is where you are now. This is where you are today. And you know where you were as a kid because you've already looked at that earliest moment of joy. And if you were to go back to that earlier version of you, that inner child version of you, as the adult that you are today, do you think that you would recognize each other? As I mentioned before in my story, it was kind of like this child and this adult kind of looking at each other and going, oh, I kind of know you, but I don't know you. It's been a while since we've kind of seen each other. Is it like that for you? Were you a super happy-go-lucky kid as a child, and as an adult, you're super serious? And if that's the case, if you both recognize each other, then that's great as well. That's good. Celebrate that. Keep it going. But if no, you've got to have that chat with that younger yourself and you've got to reconnect. You've got to allow that younger version of you to tell you all the things that give you joy, to give you hope, to remind you of all the things that you like. I often sit down with my wife and she says that she feels like she doesn't really have any passions in life. And I'm like, well, what are the things that you like to do? What are the things that give you joy? And sometimes she really struggles with that kind of task. But I think if we tune into our inner child, we can remember all those things. So another example is my 6-year-old son. He really enjoys collecting Pokemon cards. And the adult version of me goes, oh, no, it's just collecting Pokemon cards. But the inner child version of me is like, yes, this is so cool because I loved this at high school. Pokemon came out when I was in high school. I remember not having the money in our family to collect cards like that. In fact, any money that we did have, we were more into collecting basketball cards and not many for that, on that because money was tight. But now as an adult, I've got a bit more expendable income and I actually love going and buying a packet of Pokemon cards for my son. And we open it together and we look at the cards and we might look up on the internet how much they might be worth. Have we got a good one? And he's got a couple good ones. He's got a lot of bad ones. But that's just the nature of collecting cards. And this gives me so much joy and fun. This may be seeing the stuff that he's watching on telly. And this morning he was watching a show on Netflix that was actually on when I was a kid. And so that gave me all these memories of sitting around and watching that with my brothers. By tuning into our inner child, our inner version of ourselves, the ones that are full of joy and happiness, we can actually discover or rediscover the things that light us up. And so you can do this. We can do this again. We don't have to stay serious forever. We can let our guards down and tune into this inner child version of ourselves. And so once we start developing this list, we can start doing these things again. Like the Pokemon cards thing for me. I'm really enjoying it at the moment. In fact, I keep telling my son that I want to start my own folder with my own cards as well. I guess thinking about the adult version of ourselves, we don't have to overcomplicate it either. We don't need to have everything in place or planned out perfectly to do it. We don't need a lot of money or any money to do a lot of these things. It could be just buying a second-hand bike or even borrowing a bike and going for a ride. When's the last time you jumped on a bike and went around a BMX bike track or a skate park? When's the last time you took a boogie board down to the beach and just had some fun like little kids do? Maybe it's throwing a fishing rod in, or going and playing pool, or doing some sort of just physical activity that lit you up as a kid. And if you can't do that, when's the last time you went to the movies and watched a big movie on a big screen, had some popcorn, some jockeys or whatever? When's the last time you got together with a mate and just told old stories about when you were growing up or the things that you got up to? But also not doing it in a way that reinforces these barriers or these masks that we put on. So maybe with you catching up with your mate, when's the last time you just went and got together and went for a walk? Or climbed a mountain together? Went for a drive together and listened to music, or go camping, but without the alcohol, drugs, or whatever else? So this episode is a reminder that we can tune into our inner child versions of ourselves, no matter what's going on. And in fact, this is a really cool exercise, because when I think about all this type of stuff and I think about joy and happiness and what it brings to my life, my mental health stuff takes the back seat. And to the front seat comes the joy. It enables me to say yes more to my kids and to my wife. It enables me to go, you know what, Simon, I don't need to keep checking my emails that I've been on a computer for 10 hours. I'm picking up the guitar in the background. I'm going to play some songs. It enables me to put on some weird and wonderful music in my car and just belt out the lyrics out of tune, but not caring who's around and can see me. It's just about reconnecting with my inner child. And now, since the men's retreat, that's what I'm doing. I'm holding his hand more often. And if I let go of his hand, I really take note and go, hang on a second, I've left him behind a few steps. I'm not going to leave it for 15, 20, 30 years and again. It's only going to be for a few moments. Now, I'm not saying with this episode that you've got to stop being serious, because we do need to be serious at times. But often we don't need to be as serious with life. We can rediscover that joy. We can tune into joy. We can have fun. And using our inner child to do this is a great way to reconnect with ourselves and discover the things that give us joy. Well, that's pretty much it for Mindful Men episode today. And I hope you got something valuable from it from a rediscovering joy perspective. But I know that some people really do struggle with this. And so Mindful Men can actually help with this process, or a therapist. You know, I am a therapist. I'm a social worker. I get what it's like to feel down. And so if you are struggling with this and want to connect with me and do some work around reviewing those barriers maybe that you're putting in place, or the mask that you're wearing, or even just trying to figure out what brings you joy, book in a session with me at Mindful Men. Head to the website, www.mindful-men.com.au. Find out a bit about the services that I provide and give me a call. Send me an email. Therapy isn't just about bawling your eyes out. It's actually about problem solving, or it's about reflecting as well. And sometimes having somebody else to reflect with is a very useful thing to have. Sometimes we feel like we have to do it all on our own, but we don't. We can actually use someone like a therapist, social worker, counselor, psychologist, whoever it is for you, to bounce ideas off, or just to help us sift through all the mist and the murk. And on that, I do encourage you all to jump into the Mindful Men community page on Facebook. It's a brand new community where we have mindful men from all over the world coming together in a safe space. No alpha male bullshit. Maybe there we'll talk a bit about fun. Go in there, join the group, put in there, say, hey, I've just heard this episode. Here's some things that I do for fun. That'd be a great conversation starter. But outside of that, I really do thank you for joining me today. I have really loved diving into this topic and reflecting on the men's retreat and this concept around the inner child. Until next time, I hope you're staying mindful. Be mindful. Look after yourself and each other. My name's Simon Rennie. Thank you for listening. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, and I hope you got some value from it. If anything triggered your mental health today, please reach out to your support networks. Also, if you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your mates. For more from Mindful Men, you can check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll throw the links to these pages in the show notes below. But until next time, stay mindful.